Let's look at some realities of metal detecting, the true realities of metal detecting. This nickel's going to read up a lot of different days, right? You go out and you have this nickel in the ground, and you go out there 10 times throughout the year with the same machine, same program, same coil. It's different conditions, right? This nickel is going to read up different, right? Some days you might not even be able to hit this target. Sometimes it might just be a banging tone. Some days it might be a low number, or some 6 or 8 numbers off. And that's the realities of metal detecting that I experience through my 30 years of metal detecting. That's what I'm encountering, right? That's the true realities of it. You know, the soil temperature, the soil moisture, the ambient temperature, the humidity, the barometric pressure, the EMI. This soil is going to the numbers are going to read up on this nickel at 5 inches deep completely different than that soil over there, right? Across town we have really hot soil, and nickels read up 10 numbers different, right? Just the realities of it. These bench tests that you see on YouTube, sad to say, man, your metal detector's not going to perform like that in the real world. And I'll show you that here, right? If you've been metal detecting for a few years, you can totally relate and understand where I'm coming from here on this, right? If you live in fantasy land and you think that your metal detector is going to perform like you see it on these bench tests, once you get out there, you're going to be really disappointed, man, right? Let's take a 5-tone operation here, 5-tone program. You have an iron, an iron tone, low tone, which is foil, mid tone, which is a nickel, zinc penny, which is a mid-high tone, and a quarter is a high tone, right? And with a 5-tone operation, you have the tone pitch. You can adjust the pitch of that tone, right? This foil, you can adjust it, the volume level and the pitch and that tone break. So let's say this nickel right here, if this nickel is going to be reading up here or there, you know, this is scale from 0 to 99, let's say, right? This nickel is going to be read up closer to this tone break here. So you're going to get a broken tone, right? It's going to, if you have a nickel read up right there on the tone break, you're going to get a broken tone on that nickel every time you get over that nickel. You're going to have a broken tone. You're going to get a low tone and a mid tone, low tone and a mid tone. It's going to be jumping back and forth, and you can adjust that tone break. You can adjust that tone break up or down to clean up that tone for that nickel for your desired targets. But you know, some machines, when you adjust the frequency, it changes your tones. It changes the VDI of these targets here. Like on the Deus 1, this nickel is going to read up completely different numbers, from 14 to 31 kilohertz, right? Only on the HF coil. That's just a small little explanation of that. I like to simplify things, right? 60 tone is simple to use because you only have one tone break, right? You have a tone break from your iron or your reject volume to your target volume. Pitch tones is the same way. Pitch tones, you have a reject volume and you have a target volume, you know, your pitched volume. And the Deus 2, the discrimination is basically your tone break. When you're in pitch tones, your discrimination is basically a tone break in all of the program, all of the 2, 3, 4, 5 pitched full tones. It's basically a reject. And on the Deus 2, that reject volume is your iron volume. You know, you can go up and down with your iron volume, your reject volume on your discrimination. You know, if you discriminate up really high, everything up in your discriminated range is, you can adjust the volume of it. And I like a high volume of just reject volume, so I can hear it, so I can hear the iron. And if you have a 5-tone operation, it's just a lot of management, right? You have a lot of that stuff to manage. I like simplifying it, and I get the most targets out in the simplified tones. With the 5 tones, just a lot of just screwing around, pushing buttons, because some sites, this nickel is going to be over here. Some sites, this nickel is going to be down here, and your pennies are going to be down here, closer to your tone break. So you have to adjust it. And sometimes even throughout the day, right? Or if you get in trashy spots, you're going to have to adjust it, because if this foil is close to this nickel or this penny, it's going to drag the numbers down on that penny, right? No matter what you do, man. The 5-tone, it just makes it really complicated. And I get the most targets out with pitch tones on the DS2. I get the most targets with 60-tone on the Legend, because it's less bullshit, right? It's less managing the tones and tone volumes and tone breaks and all that stuff. The more simplified that you have your detector set up, the more targets you're going to get out of the ground. And the more targets you dig out of the ground, the more junk that you dig out of the ground, the more treasure you're going to find, right? Nobody's out there just getting up all treasure, right? You have to dig the trash out. And if there's any channel out there that shows you proof that you have to dig the trash out, especially if it's really trashy. If it's really trashy, you have to discriminate up high, or you have to go to a lower frequency. The lower frequencies have their disadvantages too. And I really want to get a broad range of targets out, so I don't really notch. When you notch, see, watch. When you notch on the DS2 or the Legend, if you notch this zinc penny out and this foil and this iron, you're going to get broken tones, right? You're going to get broken tones on these targets here, and because you're not going to be able to hear this, right? And with these notches, foil can read up all different numbers. So can zinc pennies, right? Those crunchy zinc pennies are going to read up all different numbers. And then when you notch iron out, hear me out on this. When you notch iron out, you're going to be digging up more iron, because you cannot hear that iron. Once you can hear this iron, you won't dig it up because you know it's there, right? I see a lot of people discriminated, like on the Legend. If you discriminate, because it's notching, right? The discrimination on the Legend is a silent notch. So when you discriminate the iron out, or you discriminate the foil out, it's a silent discrimination. You can't hear it. There's no way you can get that audio, because if you're notched it out, it's gone, right? If you tone break, like if you're in 60-tone and if you adjust that tone break up a little bit higher, like if you're in a crash or if you're in foil, you can adjust that tone break up higher, and you can control that volume of that reject volume on your rejected targets on the foil and whatnot. You know, you can silence it, you can silence it, or you can have it at mid volume, or you can have it at high volume. And you can even adjust the pitch on the Legend of your rejected targets. On the DS2 you cannot do that, at least not yet. But I just want to simplify things, right? I just don't want to make it too complicated, right? With all those tone breaks and tone pitches and tone volumes on the 5-tone, even 4-tone, 3-tone, the same way, right? Every site's different. You're going to get that broken tone. And the transition, right? It's the transition of tones, right? When you're in pitch tones or in full tones or in 60 tones, the transition, the coins just sound better when you're in pitch full tones or 60 tones. They just sound better. You don't have that broken tone. You have a less chance of having a broken tone, a harsh transition from a mid to a high tone, or a mid to a mid high tone, when you're in everything except 6-tone or 5-tone or 4-tone or 3-tone. It's just, it makes it for really jumpy tones, and you're going to be digging out more iron because you have to manage that discrimination on that also, right? So, well, finally got that video in. I didn't have any distractions. Had a lot of distractions trying to make this video. Well, thank you for watching.